Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, have you ever looked at a medium? Maybe you've met one, seen one on TV, whatever it is, and thought, wow, I wish I could do that. I wish I could connect with the other side, connect with the spirit world, get messages, pass them on to people, whatever it might be. Well, you can. We all have some intuitive ability, different degrees of it. But if you harness that ability, there's a really good chance that you can receive those messages. And he is somebody who does that work, but he also tutors lots of people on being a medium. We're going to talk about the mindset of mediumship today with Tim Medium, and he's with us today. Good to have you back, Tim. How you doing today?
Great, Steve. Thanks. Glad to be back.
Good to have you here. Yeah, not too long ago, we did talk about how it can be taught in terms of people receiving those messages from the spirit world. And do I have this right? Pretty much any of us have that ability. We just need to tune into it.
Absolutely. Everybody has intuitive ability. It's what you do with it, where you want to go with it, your mindset, your direction, your want, your desires of tapping into that ability.
Before we get into the mindset of it, I want to talk about the intuitiveness. Is it also the same thing as we say a gut feeling? A lot of people associate the same thing.
That is exactly how I usually, when I do one-on-ones with potential students, I will ask them exactly that question. Just read me like I walked in the door, and that gives me the understanding of the muscles and that they use without instinctively using. And then we just go from there, and then I understand a few things about the client or the student, and then we just develop.
People tell me that I am intuitive. People in your line of work, and I guess they mean that for everybody, but sometimes they say that I'm a little bit more. And sometimes I try to test it a little bit. I had a situation yesterday. My daughter's had a doctor for a while, and he's a wonderful guy, but I just don't feel that he's up to speed in terms of what she needs right now. Never met him. I had a picture of him in my mind. Met him yesterday, fill out some paperwork for the first time ever. He was exactly what I pictured in my mind. It was almost weird. And even to a larger degree, again, wonderful guy, being honest here, I believe he's aged out a little bit and she needs somebody who's a little more cutting edge. And it was exactly what I thought. And I didn't want to prejudge anybody, and I don't, but it was just the feeling I had. And again, wonderful guy. He's for somebody, maybe not for us. But I had the picture when I walked in, it was almost in my mind. I'm like, there he is. It was, and I don't know if that's, part of the gut feeling, the intuitiveness or whatever, but it kind of struck me as like, all right, well, you proved it again to yourself quietly that, well, there's another one, check that one off the list. Based on that, what are your thoughts about that situation?
Absolutely. That's you dialing into your intuition and using your intuition. Absolutely. It's looking into the future. It's perceiving exactly, or it's not perceiving, but you're perceiving exactly what you're being shown, and on the other side it comes to fruition. And it's very strong intuitive skills, I might add, for you, Steve. You're right. You do have some intuition going on there, and it's good ability. It's good to have.
I'm just trying to tune into it, and maybe that's what this is all about. And again, I'm scraping the surface here. But in terms of what you teach, being able to block everything out and see things within your mind or your third eye, whatever it is, and trusting it. I guess maybe that's part of it. Trusting it.
Surrendering, trusting are the key words. That's exactly where we start. You quiet your mind. You leave your monkey mind, your daily mind behind, and you go to the place I'd like to say where the magic is, but that's where it happens. And then and just going to work, and then just surrendering and trusting on what they're sending you. And you must deliver on what they're sending you. If you let it all cruise by and just say this isn't what I'm actually seeing, then you're actually missing out on the greatest thing that's probably ever going to be happening to you in regards to the information they send you. So yeah, it's exactly how it is.
How does the process work? Do you mentally ask for a message, or you just wait for it to come to you? Like in my doctor situation, I guess in my mind I said, yeah, show me a picture of this gentleman. And when I would talk to him on the phone, I would see him in my mind, and that's again what he basically looked like. Um, but I asked for it. I asked for it. Is that the way the process works, or you just kind of kick back and let's see what comes your way, or both?
Well, I could do both actually. Prepping yourself to what actually is coming, I typically don't do anymore. I used to do that while I was being educated overseas, but I was taught not to do that for the simple fact that the yeses and nos are going to matter to where the reading will go. But to perceive somebody's, I typically don't. No, I find it, yeah, quite, yeah.
How does
I'll
that how
just
does that
leave it
work
at
for you
that.
now? Just had a visual. Let's say you're buying a car. You're at a car dealership or any other situation. Do you ask for insight on that person that's selling you the car so you know that they're being honest, or other situations like that?
For me, Steve, I have the ability to dial in quite quickly. Now, dialing in is exactly what you just said. I'll dial into the person. I'll read the person. I'll read what the person's thoughts are. I'll read where the person is. I'll read what the person has done in the last week, and then I'll go into the car, and then I'll read the car. I'll read how the car's been treated. Uh, Car's energy, just like a human is. So, I mean, it's like an animal. It's like a tree. Everything has energy, and that's where we get our information from, the vibration of that energy.
Tim, really good point. Because I think we forget, if you believe in energy, we are all energy. But the objects, every object can tell a story. Same thing when you walk into a house. Why do you think, Paulo Sancho, you know, why do you sage? Why to get rid of the energy? Because the energy does tell the story of what happened, within that object, that house, whatever it might be. Tell me about your your past in learning to perfect your skills in learning this craft. You talked about you were overseas. Can you give us more on
Yeah,
that?
I actually could see at four when I was 4 years old, and usually between 4 and 6 it goes away, but for me it never did. And I could always see and do, and I always wondered why. So my very first school was in Canada here. I just sent letters to doctors around the globe, and I was fortunate enough to be put in a school, and it just went from there to where I ended up in Arthur Findlay College in the UK, learning mediumship from one of the best in the world, Paul Jacobs, and very educated. He was taught by Gordon Higginson, another well-known UK medium, and that's where I developed. It was a developing process. It wasn't one thing that got me there. It was a long process of probably 10 years of development. And you never quit developing, but you get to a certain stage to where you think you're fairly good at it. And I mean, if you are, you're not even sure. I don't even know if I am that good. I just do the work, and I just it, it, if the box of Kleenex is empty, then you've done something right.
Never thought of it that way. And I guess
Yeah,
you're only as good as people tell you, because they're the validation, I guess.
that too. The your connection. You the people do tell you. You go through a reading. Your connection, the information the spirit world sending the client is how deep that goes. Sometimes it doesn't go deep. Sometimes it goes extremely deep. Sometimes it's middle of the road. Uh, yeah, it sort of does. But sometimes you feel flat, but you're not flat. There's just a lot of dynamic, a lot of moving parts going on, right? I mean, the validation of your work, right?
And every day is different. Every reading is different. Every situation is different. I'm sure you get this somewhat often. And I talked to somebody recently who has ability. She does the work. It's actually really good. I think really good. And she told me that she went through a personal situation, um, somewhat abusive, and she's moved past that. But then I wonder, if you had the ability, why didn't you pick up on the person in the relationship that was going to be abusive? Um, and I guess it's the same thing on a basic level where somebody says, "Well, how come you're not, doing lottery numbers and things like that?" Or how come you didn't see that you were going to fall? You could be, fantastic as a medium. How does that work? And I've always wondered, why mediums don't pick up on those personal things that could be very impactful for their lives.
That situation with a loved one per se is a matter of the heart, and a matter of the heart is something where we trust the matter of the heart, and in turn we don't see the red flags, and we're not looking at it that way. I don't go into a relationship or with loved ones of that sort of nature, dialing into them. It's just not something I'm interested in doing. I'm interested in meeting them as a human, not the other side. I'm not in. It's not right. It doesn't feel right, and it's not really fair to them.
Would it be safe to say, and I think I answered in my brain my own question here, because had a personal situation. It was a major surprise to an extent. I talked to a medium I know, very trusted friend as well, and told him the situation. And he said to me, "You knew." I'm like, "Well,
Yeah,
no, I didn't know." You go, "No, you knew." But no, can't believe what happened. Well, you knew. And the more I thought about it and the more I even reflect back on it, I guess I didn't, matters of the heart, didn't want to believe certain things and think, no, but I kind of knew in some
yeah,
ways. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess that's in line what
But
you just said. When it's certain things, that are that close to maybe matters of the heart, you just kind of lock it out.
yeah, and the red flags are there. You only see the red flags after it's ended and going. Why did I seen it, but I didn't do nothing about it, and I could have, but I chose not to. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Or in those situations, even if you have massive intuitiveness, the red flags turn into yellow flags.
you don't turn into any flags sometimes, Steve.
And then
They
there's
just you don't want them to. You
yeah.
want it to work, and you want it to go in the direction you want it to go in, not what the spirit world is guiding you and telling you. And I mean, that's why we come to the earth plane. We need to learn our lessons in life. It's all about choices, right? So everything we do is choices. Everything we do is a little test for us. So yeah, I just scratch it up as experience.
Mm, yeah, and I just had this thought too. When it's somebody else, it's different. Like I like to feel I'm fairly organized. And in my organization of my world, it's okay. Could be a little bit better, for me, but it's okay. If I walk into somebody else's house and they allow it, I could look through every cabinet and say, "Hey, you could put this here, put that there. You could, use the space this way more effectively. It'd be fantastic." Because it's somebody else. It's not myself.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's easier to see the outside than it is the inside, clearly. Yeah, that's
So
for sure.
when you're tutoring somebody on being a medium, what are some of the things that are so key to have the right mindset of mediumship?
Um, Feeding yourself before you get there. So if I got a student that is my very first student doing an exercise, they're typically going to be just boom. They're going to go right into it. They're going to have good success because they're not prepping themselves and not toning themselves out of where they need to be because they're not overthinking. Mediumship again is leaving your monkey mind behind and your daily life behind, and that plays into specifically the same thing that we're talking about, and just going right at it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Look,
How's the process start? All right, sign me up. I'm a student. You can do it virtually as well. How does it all
absolutely.
work? How does it all work? Starting point is where I'm going with that.
The first thing I do is get them to read me. Just give me five things you see, just like I walked in the door at your home and you didn't know me. And that starts with the muscles that they're using. And then I just start working with them from there, working to strengthen muscles around the muscles, the clairvoyance, the claircognizance, clairsentience, clairaudience, just a few of them. And then I just start developing everything around there. But in the meantime, I start going to the place, I start quieting their mind. I make sure their mind is quiet. And then we start just give me what you see type of exercise at the same time. So there'll be a blend of a combination of a few things that I do with inside a classroom um, that I know what I should be doing with at the time.
Hmm. Uh, do you surprise yourself when you do readings?
I did a reading just before I came on, Steve, and it was extremely beautiful. I did a mother and daughter, and typically what happened in the reading, and I asked them if I could talk about it, was their father who had I do shows across the country, and they were at the show on the weekend, and we were just finishing. I didn't get a chance to finish with their reading, so we set it up for today, and the father had come in and he had just committed suicide before they even knew about it. And I started the reading at the fair, and he had come in there. They didn't know about it at that time. They went home and found out about it, and I already had brought him in. And we did the reading today, and he had come in, and he had lots of things to talk to him about. So
Wow.
it was pretty moving, pretty beautiful for the mother daughter. There was lots of things that were said through him today that were what they needed to move forward and carry on.
Without going into any detail, when you got the messages from him, what did you hear in your head?
Um,
Or
with what he brought, there was a couple things that he had brought through at once, and visualization, clairsentience was there, and he had said, and so my clairaudience was working, and he had went to a specific word in regards to lots of things he wanted to clear up with them, but there was one specific word he had used. And then I had left that area for a second or two, and then I went to the sun that came in as well. So there was two spirits that came in, and then we just did the combination, and then we went back to the father later on to the information that he had brought through, and then it got really deep and moving. And specifics were all there with validation. Again, I don't. For me, I don't do work with anything that the spirit world doesn't validate it with something very specific after the initial conversation. Yeah.
it's interesting, Tim, that you use the word beautiful. And I've never heard that in somebody describing their reading or even receiving a reading. And I think that's very special.
It is. It's all about them. It's all. I'm invisible. It's all about them. And when it's that impactful, it is beautiful because they're both healing. He wanted to clear up something specifically. They wanted to hear that today, and fortunate for everyone, it it was presented and it came through to, and it's just moving. It was even moving to me actually. Sometimes you just sit back and go, "Wow," you
Right.
know.
Have you
Uh,
had situations, and I may have asked this before, but not gone deep into it, where you just not get anything? Just I'm not. I don't know. Sometimes that happens.
You know what? For the most part, I think you can typically, as a medium, for my experiences, and I've done many, when you don't receive, it's not that. I would say, for the most part, it could be the client itself that doesn't want the receiving to happen. They're there to either judge you or be cynical or critical of you. I think that's when most blockages happen. It's not typically, if somebody wants a reading, they're coming in. They're coming in, and more than one typically, and they'll have something to say. It's not ever that any client that is there for a reason will get the answers they're seeking.
And I've heard from other mediums, if it's meant to be, it's going to happen. And to your point, to just even validate that point, uh, I had a medium who is on TV, and the producers wanted to bring the medium in and wanted me to select a panel of skeptics. And behind the scenes, unknown to the psychic, that's what I did. Solicited, found people that do not believe in anything, including somebody on the radio staff. And I knew her story, and she's just not having it. I don't believe any of that. Brought him in, I believe it was about 8 people, lined them all up against the wall. Cameras are shooting live on the radio. This medium goes through everybody, including the person I know, and I know it was her sister that passed away. And that's pump, she was holding that close to her heart. I'm not having it. Everybody got read except one older gentleman who was closed off, not having it, not giving up anything. So to your point, if people are that skeptical, it's just not going to happen.
It's certainly difficult. And you make a good point because there's 7 of the 8 that did get read. Now that's a very good number, and they that does happen too, where you will be able to bring in for sure. It has happened to me with skepticism or skeptics as well, and I still managed to bring in. I know where I was back in my hometown there. A couple friends of mine, and they were skeptics, and sure enough, I had no problem reading for them, and they didn't want to admit what was coming through, but they did admit to it after the fact. But yeah. So I mean, if you're closed, it's not happening. If you're open to it, if you just a little bit, the medium matters too to be able to connect. There's going to be some anybody who's strongly developed should be able to bring in somebody, or typically for the most part. I mean, whether they want to take the information, that's up to them. But most mediums will be able to, get something or other. Yeah.
And even in this situation, knowing one person's situation, personal, a validation for me, when this medium said this is, that your daughter, your sister had passed away. Here's the details. Here's how old she was. All of that was all coming through. So yeah, when yeah, it's there. And like you said, when the ability is there, you've gotten to the point where you've perfected your skills where you block everything out. And that could be intimidating. You're in front of somebody who's a skeptic. You feel like, oh gosh, if I don't nail this, it's just not going to be good. And I'm sure you think that too. If somebody's just not. People also tell me too that a lot of mediums want to go for that person who's a skeptic. It's like almost going for the kill. Let me see if I can bring it out.
Sometimes, yeah, that's the challenge. It's
Sure.
I mean, you go in with the right mindset every time. It's not, but somebody who is a skeptic, it adds a little more to the
Mhm.
fire, to the fight, to whatever you want to call it. I'm not even sure what you call it, but absolutely, because you want to show them that there is actually another dimension. It's not even about their negativity or their blocking. It's about more so that there is a spirit world, and there is somebody over there that wants to talk to them. That's For me, that's where the gold is, because just delivering some type of message to them is very special. Now, whether you believe or not, that's none of my business, but there you go.
It's almost like
I wouldn't know that.
it's almost like the mail service knocking on your door. And why am I using this analogy? Because they did, and I wasn't here. So I would be the skeptic. They wanted to deliver something, i.e., a message, and I wasn't available to receive the message or the package. So yeah, if you're not open to receive it, you're not going to get it. It's not coming your way.
Mhm.
Um, your website is your name, right, Tim?
Timmedium.com.
And is it a free consult if somebody wants to connect with you for reading or even to be tutored to hone their skills in terms of mediumship? Can they reach out to you, just start a conversation to figure it out?
Absolutely. I get back to everybody as soon as I possibly can. I try to. It doesn't always happen because sometimes it's pretty booked, but I will always reach out. I will always get back. There's no one that's ever come to me that I've never reached out to or had a conversation about mediumship about.
Yeah. Thank you so much for opening our eyes on the possibility that we all can do this. We have, I believe we're born with it. It's just being able to quiet the noise, and even on a good day, just to relax. Most of us can't do that, to minimize stress and all of that. This is layers deeper to receive the messages. And that's where somebody like you comes into play. Yeah, basically you're a coach, you're a mediumship coach in a lot of ways. Website is timmedium.com. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. I certainly enjoyed it.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.